Welcome everyone to my speech. My name is Betsy Cárdenas Mendoza and I have a question for you. Do you know that education in America is not a guarantee under the U.S. Constitution? In 1973, the Rodriguez, a parental member of the community of San Antonio Independent School, lawsuit the Supreme Court argued that the funding system of their school was unconstitutional according with the Fourth Amendment of Equal Guarantee of Protection. The Rodriguez lost the lawsuit after the Supreme Court stated that education is not a guarantee under the U.S. Constitution. Instead, each state has the responsibility to found their own school districts. Surprisingly or not, this is how education works in America. According with your own experience as a student, parent of a family of a student, do you think it works? If you are unsure, keep listening. In my speech today, I will be talking about the duty of the federal government to create a centralized funding system that funds all K-12 schools around the country. The points that I will be addressing today will be how inequalities affect students and schools in America, how the establishment of a centralized funding system will end up with this problem, and as well as how it should be implemented and its effectiveness. Well, how inequality in U.S. K-12 school affects students and schools. Given that education is not a right under the U.S. Constitution, the federal government has no responsibility to fund education. Instead, states has seek for different resources to fund their school district. Therefore, there are two main resources states use to finance their school districts. The first one is the federal grant, which is an amount that the federal government gives to states to financial researches, projects, or even scholarships for students or school maintenance. Also, they use property tax bill, which is an payment determined by the federal government that every single owner of a property should pay according with the value of the property as well as the extension of the land. According with a document by the Congressional National Research Committee titled Federal Grants to the State and Local Government, pointed out that the federal grants received for the federal government are just a third percentage of the total of state government funds. However, even though states receive funds from the federal government, are not enough to cover all the needs that schools and students need for a proper education. That's why the use of the property tax is not working at issue. The disadvantage of the property tax bill is that those schools that are located in low-income areas will receive a lower amount of money or financial for their school, given that the weight of the population they pay it's lower than in those school districts that are located in high-income areas. Also, an article titled Taxes and Inequality, written by Leonard Berman about trends in economy and its relationship with tax system, how finding a major trend of per students' performance given the amount of money that their school receive from the property tax bill. Also, there are another lack of sources that affects. There are other consequences that the use of property tax cause to schools, and also the inequality of the funding system of the current educational system of America, which is the lack of sources that affects the students, given that oversized classes left students behind. Because when a students need a special attention, given the oversized classes, a teacher cannot concentrate all her or his attention in that students, because she or he has other 29 or 28 students that needs attention too. So it converts a disadvantage for students, and probably it will cause the students left behind their peers. According to an article titled "Class Size," what researchers say it means for state policies publishing in a magazine titled "Bunking," the class size is directly related with students' learning and attention. A lack of attention can cause that students left behind, and also is a disadvantage for the entire school. Also, there are another significant gaps in access to core education resources, like the lack of access of technology, lack of access to accurate books and other resources for students' development. There are no enough funds to support clubs and free access to lunch and transportation. An article titled "The Lack of Sources is Affecting Education" by a Central Magazine mentioned that given the lack of sources, many school districts has to limit the resources that should be free, like transportation and free lunches for students. Moving on, what federal government should do to end up with K-12 school inequalities funding? There is a certain way that schools that education in America can use to end up with this problem, which is student-centered funding. Student-centered funding seeks for fund all the states but equal, and determine if a school or a state need an extra funding according with a student population, low income students rates of the amount of special students each school has. Also, the use of a student-centered funding has several benefits. Among them are transparency, equality, and powerful, because the school district will have the opportunity to give more funds to those schools that really need more attention or more funds to improve the students' performance and cover all the needs that school needs, instead to use the property tax that is unfair when high-income schools receive more money than the schools that really need that money. It also should be implemented, this student-centered funding, in all administration levels to ensure that equality is in all education levels. The effectiveness of a centralizing educational funding, it has been in different. The effectiveness of a centralized educational funding. Several studies and researchers support the idea that a centralized educational funding will end up with this inequality that the current education system in America has. According to the Foundation of Excellence in their article titled "How We Should Fund Education," a centralized educational system can promote equality, excellence, and innovation in American education. Also, a study by Mana Paul, in which in the article centralizing government and students' outcome, compare and contrast the relationship of police administration centralized of students' outcomes and the motion of academic excellence. The results show that a centralized system is effective to determine and face school inequalities. How this centralized system has succeeded in other countries. According with Andy Green and their article Education, Achievements and Centralizing the Centralized System, countries like French, German, Japan, and Singapore that are well known for the educational central system had achieved relevant high levels of education academy qualification than those countries with a centralized educational system. By last, the implementation of a centralized educational system for part of the federal government will end up with the current inequality that the American system has, given that it will allow all K-12 schools around the country be funded by equal. Students will have more opportunities to have access to accurate information, books, and resources to be financial for free lunch, transportation, scholarships, and also students' performance and achievements will increase given that oversized classes will disappear and teachers will have more opportunity to that all the attention that special students need. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you have learned more about how the educational system works in America, and hopefully now you support the idea that the federal government has to implement a centralized educational system to end up with the current inequality that exists in American education today. Thank you so much.